Yeah, well, but I liked you right away
Did he tell you that I had said that you should...
That we should make out?
Well, no, it was after that. I just looked...
Yeah. Well, but I liked you right away. When did he tell you that I had said that should we make out? Well, no. It was after that I just looked at the show and said, she is really, really good. Warren Beatty is 88 years old, and for the first time in decades, he's breaking his silence. A man who Hollywood once considered untouchable, enigmatic, and endlessly fascinating, Beatty's story is a mix of dazzling success, scandal, and heartbreak. For years, he kept his private life locked away, the kind of privacy only legends can afford. He's dated over 12,000 women, married only once, and held secrets that might have shocked even the most seasoned Hollywood insiders. But today, for the first time, Beatty has revealed the one person he can never forget. It's not his wife. It's not Madonna. It's not Diane Keaton. The woman who broke his heart in 1974 changed his life forever, and to this day, she remains his deepest regret. Warren Beatty came into the world as Henry Warren Bay on March 30, 1937, in Richmond, Virginia. His home life was rooted in discipline, education, and faith. The Bay household, deeply Baptist in nature, shaped his early understanding of order and morality, but also instilled a quiet creativity. His mother, Kathleen, a high school drama teacher, filled their home with the rhythm of rehearsals, storytelling, and imagination. His father, Ira, a psychologist and educator, was serious, structured, and deeply invested in his children's academic and moral growth. Warren absorbed it all, silently, observing the world around him with sharp, calculating eyes. As a child, Warren wasn't loud. He wasn't the one demanding attention. Instead, he sat quietly, mimicking voices, copying gestures, and learning the art of performance long before stepping on stage. He idolized Milton Berle and Al Jolson, often disappearing for hours into corners, performing for an audience of one, himself. Frequent moves between Richmond, Norfolk, and Arlington made him adaptable. Each new school, each new environment, sharpened his ability to read people, to anticipate reactions, and to hide his own intentions. By the time he was a teenager, the lure of performance was undeniable, though no one yet knew just how far he would go. The 1950 re-release of the Philadelphia Story ignited something in young Warren. It wasn't just a film, it was a signal, a beacon. Somewhere inside, he recognized the life he wanted to lead. At Washington Lee High School in Arlington, he excelled at football, becoming the star quarterback and even serving as class president. Yet despite offers of football scholarships from multiple colleges, Beatty's heart wasn't on the field. His sister, Shirley Moran, was already gaining recognition on Broadway, and her success pushed him to think differently. In 1954, he enrolled at Northwestern University, joining Sigma Chi and dabbling in liberal arts, but the rigid structure of academia couldn't hold him. He lasted only a year before stepping away, drawn irresistibly to the world of acting. The stage had always called to him. Summers spent at the National Theater in D.C., working backstage as a stagehand, had already taught him the craft of storytelling, timing, and presence. Even his father, who had devoted his life to psychology and education, quietly supported his son's ambition. He once told Warren, "Maybe leaving school is a sign that you're meant for something else." By 18, Warren moved to New York City, living in a small West Side apartment and surviving on peanut butter sandwiches and sheer determination. He studied under Stella Adler, one of the most rigorous acting coaches of the time. To make ends meet, he washed dishes, played piano in dingy bars across Long Island, and even worked as a sandhog in Manhattan tunnels, an odd but formative experience. Every job honed his patience, resilience, and focus. His first real TV role came at 22, in Studio One's live broadcast of The Night America Trembled on September 9, 1957. Though a minor role, it was a critical stepping stone, placing him in the orbit of legends like James Dean and Grace Kelly. From there, he appeared in Kraft Television Theater, Playhouse 90, and The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis by 1959. Each role, no matter how small, was preparation, a foundation for the intense, method-driven performances he would become known for. By 1958, he landed his first stage role in A Loss of Roses. The play closed early, but it caught the eye of director Joshua Logan, leading to a screen test at MGM. By 1959, Beatty signed a 7-year contract at $1,000 a week and moved to Hollywood, stepping into a world that would both elevate and haunt him. In 1961, Beatty made his film debut in Splendor in the Grass opposite Natalie Wood. Playing Bud Stamper, he clashed with director Elia Kazan over the script, demanding scene rewrites and multiple takes. Critics called him controlling, Beatty called it dedication to realism. The film explored teenage love and mental health in 1920s Kansas, and Beatty refused to let it be glossed over. He began forming a pattern that would define his career. He chose challenging, unconventional roles over mainstream success. In 1963, he turned down PT 109, a guaranteed hit, opting instead for All Fall Down, a nuanced story that critics praised but audiences largely ignored. His focus was never fame, it was authenticity. 1964's Lilith saw him immerse himself in the life of a mental asylum staffer, researching psychology, staying in character off-screen, and sparking rumors of an affair with co-star Kim Hunter. His private life increasingly blurred with his professional life, creating a persona that Hollywood could neither fully understand nor contain. Beatty's early romances were as tumultuous as his career choices. His relationship with Natalie Wood, beginning in 1959, ended in heartbreak by 1962, after Wood discovered his flirtations with Joan Collins. Friends say Wood's despair led her to attempt suicide. Meanwhile, Beatty began dating Julie Christie in 1967, a relationship marked by passion, betrayals, and intense creative collaboration. These relationships weren't just personal, they informed his art. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every scandal shaped the intensity he brought to the screen. Julie Christie would become the woman he never forgot, the compass of his emotional life, and ultimately, his greatest regret. By the late 1960s, Beatty had become a Hollywood force. Bonnie and Clyde, 1967, tested the studio system, blending violence, sexuality, and the experimental influence of French New Wave. Beatty fought for creative control, negotiating both his salary and production choices. The film grossed over $70 million worldwide, securing him an Oscar nomination. But chaos followed him. Affairs with co-stars, clashes with directors, and late-night script revisions became a hallmark. Shampoo, 1975, and Heaven Can Wait, 1978, saw Beatty mixing real-life drama with on-screen narrative, blurring lines between fiction and reality. Every role, every production was an extension of his personal obsession with perfection, control, and risk. The early 1970s brought Beatty into politics, supporting George McGovern's 1972 presidential campaign. His return to film came with The Parallax View, 1974, a political thriller infused with Watergate-era paranoia. Beatty took over direction mid-production, shocking the crew and delaying release, but creating a film that reflected his own fascination with conspiracy, power, and the human psyche. By 1981, Reds became a personal obsession. Researching John Reed's life, traveling across the USSR, and refusing to cut a single minute of the 195-minute runtime, Beatty demonstrated both brilliance and a capacity for exhausting perfectionism. The film earned him an Oscar for Best Director, dedicated to Julie Christie, confirming the enduring impact of his first great love. The 1990s and 2000s were marked by both triumph and scandal. Dick Tracy, 1990, brought media storms over his alleged affair with Madonna. Bugsy, 1991, reignited his career and personal life, leading to his marriage with Annette Bening. Yet even as he found family stability, whispers of past indiscretions persisted, from rumored affairs to confirmed paternity cases with former co-stars. Films like Bulworth, 1998, and Ishtar, 1987, reflected Beatty's uncompromising vision, even at financial or reputational cost. He continued to prioritize control and authenticity over box office, a trait that defined both his genius and his mistakes. By 2025, Beatty had largely withdrawn from public life. He skipped family events, avoided premieres, and retreated to his Los Angeles home. Rumors of memory issues circulated, though insiders attributed it to privacy and a desire to control his own narrative. Yet, despite reclusion, his past continued to haunt him, legacies of love, loss, and unfinished business. Julie Christie remained the ghost he couldn't shake. She was his mirror, his muse, his greatest regret. Even decades later, he admitted she shaped his artistic voice, his emotional life, and his personal philosophy. Other wounds, the lawsuits, public allegations, and financial disasters, added weight, but none eclipsed the memory of her. Warren Beatty's story is a study in contrasts, brilliance and chaos, control and obsession, love and regret. He turned down billion-dollar franchises like The Godfather and Superman, prioritized art over profit, and made decisions that haunted him for decades. He was a man who lived intensely, loved recklessly, and created legendary cinema that challenged audiences and studios alike. Even as his health and memory faltered in 2025, his legacy remained indelible. Beatty's career, relationships, and choices illustrate the complicated calculus of a life devoted to art above all else, and the haunting power of the one love he could never forget. Sitting in his studio in 2025, surrounded by memories, reels, and scripts, Warren Beatty reflected on what he had lost, what he had created, and the choices he could never undo. The cameras may have stopped rolling, but the story of his life, his triumphs, mistakes, and enduring regrets, remained vivid. "She's still the ghost I can't shake," he admitted. Julie Christie, the love of his youth, the woman who refused to be owned, the muse who shaped every corner of his artistry, remained the center of his reflection. In the end, Warren Beatty's legend is not only the films he made or the awards he won. It's the passion, obsession, and heartbreak that drove him, and the haunting reminder that even the most brilliant life can carry shadows no amount of fame or fortune can erase. Even at the height of his fame, Warren Beatty's sets were legendary, not just for the films but for the chaos behind the camera. Directors, crew, and co-stars often found themselves caught between admiration and exhaustion. He would demand endless takes, rewrite lines on the fly, and insist on immersive, method acting approaches that left others drained. For example, during Reds, Beatty pushed actors past their limits, filming in harsh climates and insisting on authenticity at all costs. Extras threatened walkouts, veteran actors considered quitting. Yet the intensity also produced cinematic gold. Critics would later call the performances unforgettable, but the toll on those involved was undeniable. Beatty's genius was inseparable from his volatility, a duality that fascinated Hollywood for decades. Every great career has missed opportunities, but Beatty's are legendary. He passed on The Godfather, citing the book didn't feel cinematic enough. He turned down Superman, Jack Herer, and other roles that could have cemented his status further. Each decision reflected his obsession with control. He wouldn't compromise his vision for fame or profit. Perhaps most haunting is Rules Don't Apply, 2016, a project decades in the making. Beatty wrote, directed, and funded the film personally. The opening weekend brought in only $1.6 million, and the project ended as a devastating box office failure. To Beatty, the failure wasn't just financial, it was emotional. It marked the end of his era as a Hollywood risk-taker, yet it remained a deeply personal statement of his uncompromising artistry. Outside the limelight, Beatty's life with Annette Bening and their 4 children, Kathleen, Benjamin, Isabel, and Ella, was quieter but far from ordinary. Despite the fame and scandal, Beatty protected his family fiercely. Yet shadows of the past lingered. Even in 2025, he struggled with moments of vulnerability and regret. He missed milestones, like Ella's Broadway debut, citing logistics, but insiders hinted at deeper anxieties, aging, fading legacy, and fear of being seen as frail. He shielded his family from the worst of Hollywood, but he could never entirely escape the ghosts of former loves, lost opportunities, and mistakes that followed him through decades. Julie Christie remained a defining figure of Beatty's heart. Their collaboration on films like McCabe and Mrs. Miller, 1971, and Shampoo, 1975, was both artistic and intensely personal. Christie represented freedom, defiance, and creative brilliance, the exact qualities Batty revered but could never fully possess. When she left him in 1974, it marked a turning point. Even after decades, he measured all relationships against her. In 1982, Reds was dedicated to her, a public acknowledgement of a love he never fully resolved. Christie became a mirror for Batty, a compass for his choices, and the ultimate reminder that not all success can fill the void left by lost love. Batty's career wasn't only marked by cinematic triumphs, it was fraught with controversy. Allegations of misconduct, including lawsuits under California's laws revisiting historical abuse cases, dogged him in his later years. Some cases were dismissed on procedural grounds, others remained in the shadows. Despite denials, these events chipped away at the legend, creating an aura of caution and reclusion. Friends describe him as fragile and hyperaware, retreating further into isolation. Even in silence, Batty's public image became inseparable from controversy, a reminder that personal demons can shadow even the brightest careers. By the mid-2020s, Batty's presence in Hollywood was minimal. He avoided premieres, award shows, and even family events, retreating into his Los Angeles home. Rumors of memory issues circulated, but those close to him suggest it was more about control than incapacity. In solitude, Batty continued to reflect on his choices, films made, opportunities lost, and love that slipped away. His home was filled with reels, scripts, and reminders of a life lived at full intensity. For Batty, the past was not just memory, it was a living, breathing part of his present, a mixture of pride, longing, and regret. Even in reclusion, Batty's influence on Hollywood remains undeniable. Countless actors and directors cite his risk-taking, dedication, and method acting as inspiration. He taught the industry that art requires sacrifice, vision, and sometimes defiance of convention. Though he withdrew from the public eye, the lessons of his life, passion intertwined with chaos, control paired with risk, love mixed with regret, continue to shape filmmakers. Batty may have retreated, but his shadow lingers in every nuanced performance and bold cinematic choice that followed. Warren Beatty's story is not just the sum of his films, relationships, or controversies. It is a portrait of obsession, brilliance, and human vulnerability. He chased authenticity at all costs, paid for mistakes personally and professionally, and loved with intensity few could match. Even as he sits alone in 2025, reflecting on decades of triumph and failure, his legacy is clear. He shaped a generation of cinema, challenged Hollywood norms, and left a lasting impact on the craft he revered. The one love he never forgot, Julie Christie, remains at the center of that legacy, a reminder that the heart can be the most demanding director of all. Batty's life, like his films, is layered, complex, and unapologetically human. He is a man who conquered Hollywood, yet never escaped the shadows of regret. The films he made, the love he lost, the controversies endured, they are all part of the same story, a life lived unflinchingly, a story that refuses to be sanitized, a legend haunted by his own choices. "She's still the ghost I can't shake," Batty whispers in 2025. In that statement lies the essence of his life, a man shaped by love, loss, ambition, and brilliance. And even in isolation, the world continues to watch, fascinated, as Warren Beatty lives with the ghosts he refused to forget. By 2025, Warren Beatty's days were quiet but meticulously structured. Friends describe him as cautious, almost ritualistic. He rose early, brewed coffee with care, and reviewed old scripts or reels for hours. He rarely answered calls and preferred to communicate through written notes with staff or close family. Yet, beneath the routine, there was a restlessness. He revisited old films, analyzed performances, and scribbled ideas for scripts he might never finish. His home, filled with relics of a legendary career, posters, awards, and personal letters, was both a museum and a private sanctuary. To Beatty, the outside world was noisy, the past was where he felt control, reflection, and, strangely, companionship. Even as a reclusive figure, Beatty never forgot the people who shaped him. Stella Adler, his early acting coach, instilled in him the importance of emotional truth. Directors like Joshua Logan and Elia Kazan taught him craft, rigor, and the power of collaboration. Beatty often reflected on these lessons privately, recognizing that the mentors of his youth guided him more than any co-star or Hollywood trend ever could. In interviews, he occasionally credited their influence, but mostly, he internalized it, letting their teachings echo quietly through his performances, his directorial choices, and his understanding of human emotion. Even in his reclusion, Beatty was restless creatively. Old notebooks revealed hundreds of story ideas, from political thrillers to character-driven dramas. Many remained unfinished, abandoned at the edge of inspiration or because of fear that they couldn't live up to his own legendary standard. Some scripts reflected his personal regrets, others his fascination with power, love, and betrayal. One unpublished manuscript reportedly focused on the one love he could never forget, Julie Christie. Friends say it was raw, honest, and unflinching. Though it remains unseen, the project captures the private intensity of a man still chasing perfection, decades after his peak. Warren Beatty often mused privately about the nature of fame. He believed it was a double-edged sword, a platform for creativity, but a spotlight that magnified every misstep. He compared it to acting itself, public perception a constant role that had to be performed flawlessly, even off-camera. He reflected on how fleeting acclaim could be. The glory of Bonnie and Clyde or Reds remained, but the world's attention was transient. What mattered most to him was the work itself and the people who shaped it. Fame, he concluded, was never the goal, it was merely a byproduct of obsession, discipline, and relentless pursuit of artistic truth. Despite decades of achievement, Beatty's mind often returned to what-ifs. He regretted turning down The Godfather, skipping Superman, and bypassing films that could have cemented his status in global culture. He questioned whether the sacrifices he made for creative control were worth the personal isolation that followed. Even with Annette Bening and their children, the shadow of lost love lingered. Julie Christie represented the life he never fully captured, the combination of love, freedom, and artistic equality he sought but never achieved. Beatty admitted that he could never stop measuring everything against that one impossible ideal, and perhaps that obsession fueled both his brilliance and his solitude. In his later years, Beatty rarely engaged with contemporary Hollywood. Younger actors revered him, but he preferred observation over participation. Occasionally, he would mentor quietly, giving advice to those who sought it, but avoided the glare of social media, red carpets, or press tours. Some insiders say he saw the industry as smaller, louder, and less patient than before. The chaos of fame he had once mastered now seemed overwhelming. Yet, despite this detachment, his influence remained palpable. Filmmakers, actors, and critics continued to cite Beatty's method, daring choices, and unapologetic pursuit of truth as guiding principles in modern cinema. At 88, Beatty faced the inevitable toll of time. Friends whispered about fragility, memory lapses, and physical decline. He rarely spoke about health publicly, but those close observed the signs of aging with concern. Yet his mind remained active, sharp in reflection and storytelling. The physical limitations did not diminish the mental agility he had cultivated over a lifetime. He continued to analyze, plan, and imagine worlds far beyond his living room walls. To Beatty, the mind was the true stage, and in it, he remained ageless. Beatty never lost interest in politics. The 1972 McGovern campaign and Reds had reflected his fascination with power, corruption, and idealism. In later years, he quietly followed political developments, often scribbling notes on campaigns, scandals, and societal shifts. While he avoided public commentary, Beatty's reflections revealed a deep engagement with history and human behavior. Politics, like cinema, was a study in character, power, and morality, a theme that had captivated him since his youth and continued to inspire his unproduced scripts. As Warren Beatty sits in his quiet studio in 2025, surrounded by decades of cinematic triumphs and personal regrets, he reflects on a life lived fully, recklessly, and with unmatched intensity. The films, awards, controversies, and affairs were all part of the same narrative, a man devoted entirely to authenticity and artistic truth. Julie Christie remains the ghost that guides him, the measure against which all other loves and accomplishments are compared. She is his ultimate muse, his greatest regret, and his personal North Star. In Batty's world, art and life were inseparable, success and heartbreak were two sides of the same coin. And though he has retreated from public view, his story continues to fascinate, inspire, and haunt anyone who dares to follow the life of a Hollywood legend. Over decades, Warren Beatty's name became as much a myth as a reality. Stories of affairs, on-set chaos, and outrageous claims circulated endlessly through Hollywood. The rumored threesome with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, the clandestine romances, and the countless whispered scandals painted him as a figure larger than life, a man who could charm, provoke, and bewilder in equal measure. Beatty never fully confirmed most of these stories. Some were blown out of proportion, others had a kernel of truth. But the power of the myth became part of his legend. Young actors would approach him not only for guidance but for a glimpse into the Hollywood he had lived, a world of glamour, danger, and unrestrained passion. The line between Warren Beatty the man and Warren Beatty the legend blurred, leaving the public and the industry captivated by a life that was both cinematic and painfully human.